Welcome to 13 Degrees of Screams.
Where we scream so you don't scream.
We're your host, Alex.
And Stephanie.
And this week we have special guest Arron from A&B Horror Movies on the show to discuss Candyman.
Before we get started, make sure you subscribe and click the bell to be notified when we post new episodes.
Hey, Arron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I can't wait.
Of course. Before we jump into the movie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history with horror, and your channel?
Yes, absolutely. So I've loved horror movies ever since I was a kid. I'm a huge fan, and sounds like you are too. So we're in good company here. I co-host my YouTube channel, which is A&B Horror Movies, with my friend in the UK. We started it over 2 years ago, and it's been a blast so far. And we'll see, hopefully many more years to come. I also have a page on Instagram, which is Arron's Movies 8587, where I post and share movies from my collection as well as horror collectibles. And there you have it.
Yeah, recording with somebody out of the country is crazy, though. Like, how did you guys meet and form this connection for this channel?
Yeah, the time differences can be a challenge, especially if our guests are in California or even Australia. We've had a few on from Australia, so imagine making that work. Gosh, how did we meet? We actually met on Instagram. So for the first year or so, we had never met in person. Since then, I've been to London twice now, and we did get to meet, and I met his family, and so we have met a few times in person, but so far it's been mostly on Zoom. And there you have it. So originally we were chatting. We both love movies. We both love physical media, horror movies. We thought, why don't we go live on Instagram? And then when it came time to do it, we both sort of got cold feet and chickened out a little bit. And then we said, well, why don't we do a YouTube and we can record ahead of time and then post it. And there you have it. And that's how, and my name is Arron, obviously, and my co-host name is Ben. So A&B Horror Movies. That's how it came about.
That is so cool. I would have just imagined you guys were like old friends or something, and then he just happened to move, not like this cool connection over Instagram that formed into a friendship and co-host. That's so cool.
Yeah, I would love for him to move to the States, but I think that's unlikely.
It would make things so much easier, right?
Yeah.
And it would. The same time zone would help.
Right.
But we make it work.
I do have to ask the question. I just thought of this. What is your favorite horror movie, if you have one?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite horror movie is Halloween. Right behind me, you can see the Halloween Funko. All those movies next to it are editions of the very first Halloween.
That's awesome.
Maybe 16 different editions, imports, Blu-rays, steelbooks, you name it.
That's impressive. Yeah, Michael Myers is my favorite, at least of like the big three. But
of course. Well, what are your favorite? I would love to know.
My default usually goes to Scream. I'm a huge Poltergeist fan. That was like one of my first horror movies I watched as a kid, so I have a lot of nostalgia with that one. So I usually like waver between like Scream and Poltergeist.
For me personally, I am newer to horror. I didn't have like the nostalgic upbringing with it. So I like a lot of the newer stuff, but my personal favorite is Midsommar.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I love how it's all shot mostly in the day, aside from that like cutscene for the theatric view, and yeah, I love how it's like so emotional, but also gory at times. I don't know. It's a weird movie that I would almost call a comfort.
We could see that. Yeah. We need more daytime horror.
Yes, for sure.
Good choice.
Thanks.
Candyman is a 1992 American Gothic supernatural black horror film written and directed by Bernard Rose. Inspired by Clive Barker's short story The Forbidden, the film tells the story of a Chicago graduate student researching urban legends and folklore. This journey brings her face to face with the Candyman, the spirit of an African-American artist and former slave son who was brutally killed in the late 1800s due to his romantic involvement with a wealthy white man's daughter. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 79% with a critical consensus that states, though it ultimately sacrifices some mystery in the name of gory thrills, Candyman is a nuanced, effectively chilling tale that benefits from an interesting premise and some fine performances. It also has a 63% audience score.
Helen Lyle, a graduate student at the University of Illinois Chicago, is researching urban legends for her thesis. She becomes intrigued by the legend of Candyman, a spirit who is said to kill anyone who says his name 5 times in front of a mirror. Helen and her friend Bernadette Walsh decide to investigate the legend further, focusing on the Cabrini Green Homes public housing project, where several murders have been attributed to Candyman. As they delve deeper into the legend, Helen and Bernadette interview residents and uncover the tragic history of Candyman, who was once a renowned painter named Daniel Robital. Their investigation leads them to a series of chilling encounters and discoveries that blur the line between myth and reality.
We are about to discuss heavy spoilers for the rest of the film. Please jump to 28 minutes 44 seconds to skip those.
Initially skeptical, Helen and her friend Bernadette Walsh say Candyman's name 5 times to Helen's bathroom mirror, but nothing happens. In the following days, Helen and Bernadette decide to work on a thesis about how Cabrini Green residents use the Candyman legend to cope with racial inequality. Did you have your hand raised?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I had to scratch. But I did want to ask both of you, because similarly to the whole Bloody Mary, did either of you do Bloody Mary? Arron, you did?
I definitely didn't.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I know of it. It's funny you mentioned that because I have a shirt that says Bloody Mary 3 times on it, and I was at a gas station wearing it, and this older gentleman next to me said, "I love those drinks."
That's not quite what we're talking about here.
No, but it made me laugh. I was like, "Oh, they're so good, right?"
That's so
right,
funny.
I would have rode with it too. I'd be like, "Yep, my favorite too."
Yeah. Did you know I was going to ask you the same thing?
I knew about it. I was just curious if you've ever done it, because I'll admit I was too afraid to ever do Bloody Mary in the mirror. I was like, not me.
I don't know. I think I must have at one point, but yeah, I don't know.
Really?
I'm still here, so maybe not.
I definitely never tried. I was too afraid of everything. I was afraid of the silliest things as a child, so definitely didn't attempt. So they visit the scene of the most recent murder, where Helen climbs through the wall into another vacant apartment and finds a room with suites left for Candyman. They interview the victim's neighbor, Anne-Marie McCoy, a single mother raising her infant son, Anthony. Later, Helen, her husband, Trevor, and Bernadette have dinner with Professor Philip Purcell, an expert on the Candyman myth. He reveals that Candyman was Daniel Robital, an African-American man born in the late 1800s as the son of a slave who became a renowned painter. After falling in love with and impregnating a white woman, her father sent a lynch mob after him. The mob sawed off his right hand, smeared him with honeycomb, and bees stung him to death. His body was burned on a pyre where the Cabrini Green Homes was eventually built.
So I was curious, maybe I just completely missed it, but they're writing a thesis, but what exactly is the thesis? Just Candyman doesn't exist, or this is the actual story of Candyman? Like, what was Helen and Bernadette really writing about?
At first, I thought it was just any myth that they could kind of find within the community. But then I think as more people kept mentioning Candyman, it seemed like they were going with directly Candyman relating to the whole racial inequality stuff and like the project homes at Cabrini Green.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think early on in the movie, they're interviewing other students, right, and focusing on urban legends in general. But then I think they stumble upon something with the Candyman legend, and it's nearby. So they, I think they just pursue it. And that's how the movie unfolds.
Yeah. It's also interesting that her husband is also teaching about urban legends. I'm like, is that just the thing to talk about around here? It's just urban legends.
She's mad at him too, and I was mad at him the whole time. He doesn't even make a lot of appearances in this plot once I wrote it down, but I was like, this man is obviously cheating on you. Like, we all saw it.
Yeah, I think she knew the whole time, right? Am I reading into that a little bit? Like, immediately off the bat.
She clocked him like the first time she saw them together in the lecture hall. Like, he was kind of, I don't know, like it seemed like he had his hand resting like on her upper chest or something like that. It was strange. It was not an appropriate thing for professor and student. And she was like, see ya, when she walked out. So I think she clocked that they were into each other in some way.
Or perhaps that he was friendlier than he should be. Is that the scene where she walks up and sort of announces herself as the wife?
Yes.
I think was obviously her way of saying back off to the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess it didn't seem like he was having an affair yet. It also, I mean, clearly he does, spoiler alert, But that's also when she gets institutionalized. So,
well, when she first gets arrested too, she calls the house and it's like 3 a.m. and they show the bed is empty and the phone's ringing next to the bed. So I think it's
that's true. Okay.
a little bit
Okay,
before.
I take it back. I take it back. I was just trying to defend him a little bit, but
no, I'm always on the side of the woman scorned. So
Trevor.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
I think maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not gonna try. I was gonna try to defend him too, but I'm like, it's not worth it. He's not worth defending because by the end you're like, this man sucks.
Absolutely. They certainly set it up well. And then the payoff is when obviously she comes back to the apartment and they're using that horrible, it's like a pink color. I agree with her. This is awful.
Right. You don't agree with this color scheme.
The color scheme, that's what it is. I knew it was something like that.
I'd be more mad about that color than the fact that he left me for this woman. I'd be like,
you let this happen?
Yes, but how fantastic is it that she gets to throw the bucket of paint against the wall? It's like, okay, now hopefully now she feels a little better.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
When Helen returns to Cabrini Green, a young boy named Jake tells her about an incident where a developmentally disabled boy was castrated by Candyman in a public restroom. Helen investigates the site and is attacked by a man claiming to be Candyman. She identifies her attacker to the police, who recognizes him as the head of a local gang and charges him with murders attributed to Candyman. A few days later, the real Candyman appears to Helen in a parking garage, hypnotizing her. He explains that because she discredited his legend, he must shed innocent blood to perpetuate it. Helen blacks out and wakes up in Anne-Marie's apartment covered in blood, finding Anne-Marie's pet Rottweiler decapitated and her son Anthony missing. Anne-Marie attacks Helen, who stabs her during their struggle. The police arrive and arrest Helen. This whole scene, like with her waking up in the blood and everything, and even with like the public bathroom thing too, like I think I clocked it to see how far we had gone into the movie without actually seeing Candyman. I think it's almost an hour before we even get any visual of the actual Candyman, aside from the graffiti and stuff.
Yeah, it definitely takes its time.
Yeah.
It's in the parking lot, right? That's when we really see him.
Yes. And then with Anne-Marie and everything, she seems so sweet too. Like she lets her into her apartment after she was like clearly didn't want them around at first, and they explains the whole legend. And even though she seemed like, yeah, he could still come back for me though.
Wait, what?
And then her poor dog, like
I know. I did not remember the dog dying at all. I was like, oh, that's a shock.
And when they looked at the crib too, I just saw kind of like a bloody mess, so I thought he was already dead. Like Anthony, I didn't realize he was missing until they started questioning her at the police station.
I mean, that's what's horrific, right? The first time through is that you think this baby has been murdered.
How do you feel about it's not a trope per se, but the whole situation where all of a sudden Helen wakes up and she has no idea what's going on? Like, did he possess her, make her do this? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think it's really effective in the institution when she thinks he's there and she sees him, and then the video afterward, you realize that he's not there. At least she sees that he's not there in the recordings. I think it's intentionally kind of left open that it could have been him or that she's possessed. I think that's what makes the movie work so well, is because you could argue either way. The legend of Candyman is involved in some way, right?
Right.
What are your takes on it? What would you say?
I just kind of assumed, it was just a matter of no one was ever there to witness it, aside from I kind of eliminated mentally the video camera footage that he wasn't there for that section. But otherwise, I was just no, she doesn't have a good witness at this point. And I don't know, because like in the psychiatrist office, he kind of just like comes out of nowhere, like almost like out of this man's butt, and just like starts ripping up. just rises up out of the chair, and he's like stabbing this man. I don't know, not from behind. Like, it just seems like he's like in the exact same spot he's in. It just, I don't know.
That's true. So that's definitely not. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess as she's an unreliable narrator in some ways, then because she doesn't know what's happening, and the audience doesn't fully know what's happening either. But I think it's safe to say, like I mentioned, is that Candyman is involved in some way, whether he's working through her or manifests physically in the room to actually do the deeds, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting for me because when he first sees him, she's almost like in a trance, and she's like, it focuses on her eyes, like really captivated by him. So when I initially, rewatched it, I thought maybe she was like under a trance, but I don't know now. I think maybe she somehow got there, obviously. So whether she just like walked off and then she witnessed it happening, I don't know. But I was just curious what your thoughts, because normally in every other scene we see, he just kills them all. So
Yeah. Yeah, he's very quick too. Like instantaneously kills people, at least like other people that aren't Helen. Helen, he just like talks incessantly about how they're going to live forever and all this stuff like that, and your death will be exquisite. But everybody else is just like out.
That's such a Clive Barker
talking. Yeah.
The pain will be exquisite makes me think of Hellraiser.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I was just curious, or maybe she's just seeing him herself and she's doing. I don't know. It's just very interesting because you're through Helen's point of view, so you just like never know.
Helen returns to her apartment to find Trevor living with one of his students, Stacy. Helen confronts him and then flees to Cabrini Green to rescue Anthony. She finds Candyman in his lair, and he tells her that her surrender will ensure Anthony's safety. Offering her immortality, Candyman opens his coat, revealing a rib cage covered in bees. The bees pour out of his mouth and into hers as he kisses her. He vanishes with Anthony, and Helen wakes up to find a mural of Candyman and his lover, who looks strikingly like her.
We're sure about that. They kind of look like her adjacent.
Kinda. I mean, as much as a two-dimensional woman can, I guess.
Yes.
I'm sure it's no surprise, but I was watching behind the scenes footage of this movie, and those bees, Tony Todd actually had those bees in his mouth, and they were
I
all
heard
over.
about that.
I was like, oh my God. I mean, if I was an actor, there'd be no way. I'd be like, oh, I guess you have to find a stunt double or someone else to do this, because it's not happening.
Drag Me to Hell. I just watched it recently. Alison Lohman's character, when he gets all those worms and maggots thrown on her face. If you watch like behind the scenes, like they really did. They really did that. Sam Raimi really did that too.
Oh gosh.
I digress. Back to Candyman.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I write memes for the show too after, they come out, just to go along with like little images captioned with the show. And I was thinking the image of Candyman with the bees coming out of his mouth is like when you commit to doing the thing and it doesn't work out.
Perfect.
It does not work out.
Oh, but I also wanted to talk about this whole like love story thing too, like because Helen seems like kind of transfixed by him when they do talk, and then like fights it, but then not, and then I don't know. I just feel like, what are your guys' take on the whole love story aspect? It seems very much like Candyman's so into her until this like final scene, and he's like, well, now Helen and the baby can die.
Well, I think, he wants her to be immortal, right? Like he keeps saying, be immortal, be immortal. So I think like he wants to kill her so she could be with him, maybe, or is it just a ploy? But then there's also that mural. I don't know, like because what are the odds that he comes across Helen and like, is she a reincarnated version of this woman, or did she just happen to look like her? It's kind of unclear.
Yeah. At least until this portion, I thought he was really, like, let's be together forever. But then when he still ends up trying to kill the baby in the end, I'm like, oh, I guess that was a lie. It didn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, not saying I really wanted them to be together, but maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Helen's available now.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I feel like I don't really know how to describe it. I feel like the love story doesn't quite work for me. Definitely from his perspective, because she looks like the woman from the past, right? But otherwise, she's sort of hypnotized by him. So how much of it is mind control and how much of it is sincere?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think it doesn't work 100%.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand the motive. Like, Candyman seems to he'll kill anyone. No regard for
problem.
age, sex, anything like that. So then even when he's allegedly in love potentially with someone, he's like, yeah, you die too. I just don't understand like why. Like obviously he's, vengeful for what happened to him, but also like why the baby? Like that just feels like killing just to kill. That's the part that I'm struggle with, because part of me like feels sympathetic for Candyman, but not when he just kills anyone for no reason. And he even says innocent blood for spilling, and I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
Why
like when he
doing that?
attacks the friend, actually when they say it in the mirror, only Helen says it 5 times. She backs away after 4, but she just happens to be in the room when he's like talking to Helen, and she completely gets gutted. So yeah, it's not really fair if we're going by Candyman laws here.
Well, like the therapist too, he was just there.
Yeah, he was just there.
I know nothing about the story this is based off of, but like in my head, it's weird that he would kill people at Cabrini Green. Like these people are already down and out. Like I feel like it'd be more interesting if he took out rich people or something. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if you want a sympathetic villain, but it just there's a disconnect for me with that.
Well, and then they almost pay homage to him as like a legend, like they're leaving him candy and stuff like that. To like Sweets for the Sweet is like written everywhere, and I don't know. I just think it's very confusing because like sometimes it does seem about the whole love story aspect, but then when he's talking to Helen, like we got to perpetuate the myth because you discredited me. I'm like, that's even more reason to kill her. Like,
there's a lot of mystery there. I think you're raising questions that are difficult to answer.
He's a legend, right? So he needs people to believe in him almost for it to be real. I feel like you would want to keep people around, because if you just keep killing everyone off, we could just attribute that to being murdered. Like, like a random act of violence kind of a situation. Like you need Helen around to like sing your praises a little bit. Like, let's not kill her. Be like,
she'll definitely believe after at this point.
Right. Like she could be his, like, don't kill her. She obviously believes in you now. So like you need someone to spread the word a little bit.
Oh my God, let her write the thesis and get the word out.
And her friend's dead. Her friend can't write it. So now it has to be Helen. Yeah, he does kind of suffer from like the Tinkerbell effect. Like if he doesn't have people to clap for him, he's just not here.
Right.
That's a good point. Well, her friend was just there to get killed.
Right. Yeah.
Helen was the one who was going to write the thesis anyway, right? We all know that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Bernadette was just riding the coattails. She was like, you do it, put my name on the page, and we'll be good to go.
It was just for someone for Helen to talk to.
Of course.
I'm completely joking.
No. Candyman promises to release Anthony if Helen helps him instill fear in Cabrini Green's residence. Trying to feed his legend, Candyman attempts to burn both Helen and Anthony in a pyre. Helen stabs Candyman with a flaming plank, destroying him, and dies while rescuing Anthony. The residents, led by Anne-Marie and Jake, pay their respects at Helen's funeral. At home, the grief-stricken Trevor looks into the mirror and says Helen's name 5 times, causing her vengeful spirit to appear and kill him with Candyman's hook, leaving a hysterical Stacy to find his body in the bathtub. A new mural of Helen dressed in white with her hair ablaze appears in Candyman's lair.
Why Helen gotta die like that? That was rude.
And then I'm really curious on how, obviously this is my first watch, so I haven't seen the sequels. I don't know anything about the books or that it's based off of. I'm like, how do we get a sequel? Is it just Helen?
No, it's Candyman.
Just Helen?
No, Candyman.
Yeah, I don't know. Candyman's back.
Yeah, he's back.
I've got it somewhere.
I feel like, I don't know, this ending just doesn't work for me. He's a ghost, but also has a body, and she burns him, and that kills him, but not really. I don't know. I'm just like, what is going on?
Yeah, because the ending sort of applies that Helen's the new legend, and now Candyman is done, but it's Helen. When we find out that it's not like Candyman, Helen's Revenge or something like that for the sequel, I'm just like, how do we go from there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just rewatched it in preparation for this. I rewatched it. I kind of liked her as the villain, even more so than the actual Candyman. I thought, it's too bad they didn't do a sequel with her.
Yeah,
as the villain. I could see why she, as an actress, probably wouldn't want to do that. But I think they could have done more, and we probably would have, as an audience, felt more connected to her after watching the first movie. it could have done a lot with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she's in the sequel at all. Who is it? It's a different actress, Kelly Rowan. I
Oh,
guess was on
okay.
the OC.
Oh, all right.
I haven't
Remember.
watched the sequel in years, and I don't remember it being very good. And
At least the third one's really bad. I remember that.
Day of the Dead is even worse with
no.
the Baywatch actress Donna D'Errico.
Mm-hmm.
But Tony Todd's in it, and he's a legend. So
right, he makes it palpable at least. The sequels, the first one's good. The sequels are at least you have Tony Todd to look forward to.
I lightly perused it and saw that there was details including characters' names that were in the original, like Anne Marie and Anthony come back for the sequels, it seems, or at least mention of them. I
think there are definitely
the second one, right?
I don't know. I know Anne Marie's in the 2021 reboot requel. I actually didn't see that one. But I think
maybe
Anne
that's
Marie's
what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because I was looking into that. I actually didn't see it, but I think that character's in that at least.
Okay.
Well, it's the same director as the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn.
Oh no!
Oh wow! Okay.
So there you go. Right?
That says everything. Okay, let's.
If you're a fan of Baywatch, then you could check out. This is in New Orleans, I think, right?
Oh, really?
New Orleans during Mardi Gras, I believe.
Oh yeah, I think I saw mention of it. Like it all happens.
No, it's in Los Angeles. I'm wrong. It's the Day of the Dead.
Oh, Day of the Dead. Yes,
I'm completely wrong. But I haven't seen it since the '90s, so I don't. But I own a copy. Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I like. So I love the ending where Helen comes back and Trevor gets his comeuppance because screw that guy. Mm-hmm. I was just confused about the Candyman's death, quote unquote, like where she sets him on fire and then bees. I'm assuming they're like bees fly out. You're already dead. Like, what are we doing? Does she cast you out? I don't understand what happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's like the only thing that throws me off. I'm just like, okay, she defeated him, I guess, but not really.
And to talk about that funeral scene too, where like Cabrini Green people come to pay their respects, they throw his hook on top of her grave. And I was like, is that like a thank you? Or is that like a now you have the hook? Or I'm not sure.
You're going to need this. Here you go.
Right. Yeah, maybe a sign of you defeated him.
I think she uses the hook to kill Trevor. Like she's just holding it. It's not.
Oh yeah, she does. She's holding it.
Yeah. So maybe.
I just love when Jake, the kid, he looks out the window at the exact wrong time and sees the hook, and it's actually just Helen. And then he gets everyone out there to set this thing on fire. He's like, Candyman's here. I'm like, no, that's Helen. Like, that was just such bad timing.
To be fair, though, is it a little bit of a boo-boo on Helen to be like, I'm going to go save this baby with the hook?
With the hook, yeah.
Anything else? Any other weapon?
It did make for some entertaining, dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Dramatic purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her crawling out of the pyre with her head on fire. That was crazy.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
But then by the time she comes back for the ending to kill Trevor, she looks so like sci-fi character. Like, I don't know if I think it's like all the flashing as well. And just like her bald head and the hook. I'm like, oh, she's like sci-fi now.
Sci-fi now.
She's just sci-fi now. Candyman delves into profound societal issues through the narrative of an urban legend as it scrutinizes the historical and systemic injustices endured by marginalized communities, revealing the depth of their struggles and the impact of gentrification. The story highlights the power of belief and fear, showing how they can shape perceptions and realities with the unjust treatment of the characters, sparking the need to perpetuate violence. By blending elements of horror, folklore, and social commentary, the film offers a thought-provoking and captivating experience that resonates on multiple levels.
Are you guys ready to jump into our ratings?
Yes, let's do it.
Alrighty. So the first category is suspense. Stephanie, I'll start with you. What did you rate it out of 3?
I had it as a 2. I think it was suspenseful in parts where I was like just expecting him to pop out. I thought there was so many moments where we would have seen him, and maybe that's just because of the newer films that I've watched where they kind of like cut to the chase and they're like, here's the big bad. But they really do the slow build and have like a little fake out with this gang member claiming to be Candyman before we get to it. So I gave it a 2 just for the building of it, I guess.
I'd give it a 2 as well. I agree with everything you just said. I think there are suspenseful moments, but overall the pacing is sort of off for me. It doesn't quite work as well as it could.
So I actually just gave it a 1. I didn't find it super suspenseful, or I wasn't like edge of my seat, like wondering. I was more intrigued actually about the backstory, the lore of Candyman, that kind of a thing. I felt the danger a little bit for Helen when she went to Cabrini Green, but I wasn't like, she was there. She wasn't like being chased down, stuff like that. There wasn't a whole lot of tension building scenes in my opinion, but I did give it at least a 1 because I did sense the danger when she was out and about.
I thought that there would be like a lot more jump scares especially with her climbing through the walls and stuff.
I will say, okay, I've said this before, jump scares, I'm just always anticipating them, so they usually don't get me all that much. When his hook came through that fucking mirror, I jumped so hard. Like I was, because it was just like, just in the apartment and it just comes out of nowhere. And I don't know, just the juxtaposition of a nice pristine apartment and this hook coming out of the mirror, it got me. I was like, oh damn.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
With the flashback, that made me jump a little bit too. Like with the boy and girl in the mirror, they were just like hooking up. It was like a babysitter and her boyfriend. And he goes downstairs and then just like the blood curdling scream and then looking up at the ceiling and all the blood, like,
yeah.
I was like, something bad has happened.
Yes. We needed more scenes like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to love this film. Every time I rewatch it, I want to love it. And it's just hard to, for that very reason. The pacing, like I said, the pacing is off. It definitely takes its time. And I found myself multitasking, to be honest.
That's fair towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just gets a little too fantastical towards the end with the whole like love story and stuff like that. It just kind of shifts from being like this slasher killer to like, oh, now he's like so sympathetic, and now do I want them to be together? Do I want them to have like a Phantom of the Opera moment or like, or something like that? So yeah, I think the tone kind of just shifts halfway through. What did you guys have for atmosphere? Arron, would you like to kick us off for that category?
I think they do a really good job with the atmosphere in Cabrini Green. I don't know. I struggled with this one a little bit because I wanted to go high. So to be honest, I put a 3. Originally, I said 2, and then I went with a 3 because I think the atmosphere, even so, like the school setting, I think is effective. Sort of feels very clinical. And then the sort of Cabrini Green is such a sad place. I think they do a really nice job of making it seem like very bleak and depressing. I'm going to stand by it. I'm going with a 3.
How about you, Alex?
Oh, I'm in the same boat. I was teetering between 2 and 3. I ultimately just gave it the 2, though. While when you're at Cabrini Green, you obviously get the sense of, to your point, Arron, how bleak it is and how dangerous it truly is. But when I think of atmosphere, since it is our world and it's still someone's, like, where people live and that kind of a thing, I don't want to judge it too harshly in terms of like, this is the scariest thing ever. So I did keep it the 2 because, I mean, it is super dangerous and just a desolate place. Since we have characters like Anne-Marie that live there, she's okay, quote unquote, okay. I didn't give it the 3.
I had it as a 3. I agreed with Arron with the whole Cabrini Green. I like the graffiti aspects, especially like when she crawls through the wall and then she turns around and it's just like Candyman's face that she had crawled out of. And I like that juxtaposition because Helen mentions to Bernadette at one point that her building is the exact same floor plan or whatever as Cabrini Green's apartments. And just the juxtaposition between Helen living in this like fancy high-rise apartment and the people at Cabrini Green essentially living in the same type of place. It's just been completely with the graffiti and everything and how run down it is in comparison to Helen. I thought it was good to build atmosphere and to see the difference there.
They need to fix that cabinet situation because the fact there's a giant hole behind my cabinet, I'm like, I would not feel safe nowhere. Right. Just crawl into my bathroom, excuse me.
Yeah, as soon as the first person died by cabinet death, like cabinet killer, yeah.
Sure.
I think you need to put some
Think of all
concrete
the
there.
extra storage possibilities.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right? There's never enough room in the cabinets. Imagine if there was a giant hole in the back.
Right.
And
Your own version of Narnia back there.
Like, yeah, this soup expired 12 years ago.
I mean, Helen has no neighbors. She could just use that whole apartment for more stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Just put
If no
stuff in
one's
there.
rented
Sure.
it out, that's all storage.
Painted any color she wants.
Oh yeah,
Not
there
the
you go.
pink. Mm-mm.
No, definitely not a pink girl.
All right. Our next category was plot. Stephanie, starting with you. What did you have plot?
Yeah, it's gonna be a 2 for me. It's kind of the same things what I said about suspense, that it just kind of switched tonally, and I appreciated the buildup we got to not seeing Candyman towards the end, because it like really kind of built him up for me, but also like in points that made it drag as well. So I don't know. It felt like we were going back and forth with interviews, and then at one point it seemed like we were like really getting into it, and then we kind of like take another step back to do some more interviews, and kind of like going this back and forth motion for a little while until anything started to rev up. It felt like, aside from like those beginning deaths, like that are part of the legend. How about you guys, Arron?
Yeah, I agree. I gave it a 2 as well. I think there are times where the story is not consistent, and maybe that's intentional. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they would fix it either. I think there are just some, like I said, inconsistencies with the story. So I gave it a 2 as well.
Yep. I also gave it a 2. The third act just kind of drops the ball for me outside of the very, very end. I'm not a huge fan of she's crazy. Like when like someone's telling you like this is happening and no one believes you. And like, granted, I also probably wouldn't believe her in this situation. Like, just, with everything
just
that happens.
Fact that she keeps getting the weapons back in her hand by the time anyone shows up is problematic for her.
Yeah. So that just frustrates me when it completely shifts gear to all of a sudden, like, Helen was a driver in the plot. She was pushing the plot along. Then all of a sudden she kind of becomes, I'm just now in his grasp. Like, what am I going to do? I mean, she still, escapes and that kind of thing. I'm just not a huge fan of the whole, like, no, seriously, this is happening. No one believes me. It just frustrates me more than anything. And I'd rather we had Helen in a clear headspace to kind of defeat Candyman, as opposed to like all of a sudden she's just like on the run. So I gave it a 2. I still think I like this movie. I still think it's good. I just wish the story didn't go that direction. So that's why I couldn't give it the 3.
Agreed. It's almost like they didn't know what to do with her and him. As they set him up as the villain, but then I don't know. I feel like they could have done more with it.
Yeah. I think they couldn't make a final decision on what they wanted for sure. So they were just like, let's put all of it there.
I'd be really curious, again, what Clive Barker wrote, because, like, not to bring up Hellraiser, I know when they made the Hellraiser movie, they tried to make it more like a slasher or like more of a mainstream horror movie. So I wonder if the original the story of the Candyman that it's based off of, which direction was it? Was it more of like this backstory of him and Helen as a lover potentially, or were they trying to make the movie more of a slasher-y at the beginning? I'd be curious to see which direction it kind of goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I don't. Is it from his Book of Blood anthologies?
I don't know.
I've read some of his stories. I don't know if I've read this one.
I would just be curious, because like, it's one of those things, like, yeah, we could say what we want the movie to be, but since it's based off of something, we can't stray, too far without changing it. So I would just be...
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how true it is to the story or not.
Yeah. I was trying to look it up, but then I'm getting a lot of not that.
It's probably in the Books of Blood anthology, because he wrote a series of books, short stories. Like the Midnight Meat Train is from that.
Okay.
There's a movie called Book of Blood, which is based on the framing story of the first anthology.
Oh, I see a Reddit here link that says it's actually known as The Forbidden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I didn't think to look into that.
Yeah, no.
Maybe someone can add a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Let us know if you've read it.
Right. Yeah, I'd be curious, like, what was the overall goal? Like, would they really want Helen and Candyman together, or they really want to focus more on the slasher effect? I don't know. I feel like it's a little confused at times.
All right. Our last category is villain, danger, conflict. In this case, I obviously said Candyman was the villain. So, Steph, what did you give Candyman as a villain out of 3?
Oh, I had the Rottweiler as the villain? No, kidding.
No!
No, he was very aggressive, though. But he seemed like a sweet baby once they let him in the apartment. Anyway, Candyman, I had as a full 3. Like the bees, it's also just the work of the actor. He's doing the most. And I love how he's got like this vibe of like the theater too. Like you almost imagine him like reciting Shakespeare, like whenever he approaches anyone, like, yes, your death will be delicious or, intriguing and enticing and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I mean,
okay.
I guess that's a vibe. Like, and yeah, I think he's just a very interesting person. I like the legend that comes with it. I love a backstory. I love that it just like he didn't wake up one day and it was like I was going to slaughter everyone. Like, so what did everybody else think about this?
I gave him a 3 for sure. Candyman, it's like one of those things. Like once you say his name 5 times, like you're pretty much screwed. There's no like, what are you going to do? And he could be anywhere at any time, and he will not hesitate to brutally murder you in an instant. So he's very scary. So I gave him the full 3.
Yeah, same here. I mean, he is horror royalty, I would say. He's one of the legendary villains. He's right up there with some of the greats, Pennywise, Michael Myers, Ghostface, Jason. I think they're all in the same category, let's say. So yeah, you got to give him a 3.
I will inject a funny little antidote. So obviously, like I said, I didn't grow up with horror movies, but I had a friend that would tell me about them. So that was kind of how I got interested in them later on in life. But my one friend said that Candyman was attractive. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, are you talking about the Christina Aguilera Candyman video? Like with them being sailors? I guess one of them could be cute. Like, and she's like, no, not at all. Like, not even the same. We're not even in the same room right now.
So
very
close.
Different.
Yeah. Yes. Not quite. So
I did meet Tony Todd 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
I got to meet him at a horror con here in Massachusetts. So,
that's so cool.
Very easy to talk to, kind of very tall, and just normal, but cool at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, I was a little starstruck, and I struggled a little with my words. I probably seemed fine, but I was like, oh my God, what do I say to him? But no, it was cool. Yeah. We had a little conversation, a little chat. He signed the pictures I picked out and got a picture. He took a couple pictures with me.
That's
awesome.
So cool.
Yeah. So what about like the extra special point? Like, and I was kind of trying to explain as best I could to Arron what it is exactly. It's more like if you like the movie, like you can give it to it for anything really, as long as you thought it deserved it. So, Alex, how about you go first with your extra point?
Yeah, I gave it the point. I do enjoy this movie overall, even though I have some complaints with it. I think overall, though, it is a very well-made film. It does tackle a lot of issues, and there's themes behind it. So I definitely gave it that one.
I felt the same way too. I knew going in like what the premise was, and I was like completely cool with just having it on in the background and figuring it out kind of as I went. But as I turned it on, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm a little bit more invested than I realized. So I gave it the point. I liked it. How about you, Arron?
I'd give it an extra point too. It's a movie that I think I will keep going back to. And before we started recording, I told you I got out all the copies I have. So whenever there's a new edition of it, I even got the steelbook here.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
That's really cool.
I love that art.
The nicest is the Arrow edition, the 4K box set from Arrow Video, and it's got like a whole booklet.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I would definitely give it an extra point. I think it's a movie that deserves to be rewatched.
So if we tally all of ours up, Stephanie, yours came to 11, mine came to 9, and then Arron, yours was also 11. So out of 13, 11, and 9.
Arron, would you like to tell everyone where they can find you? Any links or anything that people could go to watch your show or visit your Instagram?
Absolutely. So again, A&B Horror Movies, you can find us on YouTube. The easiest way to find us is to search for A&B Horror, and that's with an ampersand. And you can also find us on Instagram at AB Horror Movies. And again, I'm on Instagram as Arron's Movies 8587. And I just want to give another shout out to you both. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. And I'd love to be a guest again in the future.
Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we're excited that you were able to join us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Agreed.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving us a 5-star rating is super helpful. We would always appreciate that. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can like and comment on this video and let us know of movies you'd like us to watch next.
You can find us on social media using 13 Degrees of Screams.
This has been 13 Degrees of Screams, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.